Women in LNG in association with Powerplay, presented by ExxonMobil. You're watching LNG TV and the latest episode of Women in LNG. I'm Vance and I'm delighted to welcome Chen Davis to the show this week, Vice President of Lake Charles LNG. Amy, thank you so much for joining us. How are things with you?
It's great. Yeah, thank you for having me. I love your studio. Very well lit. I hope the lighting is okay here.
Firstly, for those who are not as familiar with the Lake Charles LNG project, it would be great to hear how the project's progressing and also from yours and Energy Transfer's perspective, what you feel are its key advantages over other US LNG projects in development.
Sure, happy to do that. Lake Charles LNG is a brownfield development. Its existing assets is the key advantage of the project. So we have a trunkline pipeline, that's an 800-mile pipeline connected to Lake Charles. And then we also have 425 kcm of storage capacity, which is very valuable. And you have 2 jetties and numerous other infrastructure that's already in place. Because of that, we have the lowest lump sum turnkey EPC cost in the US, demonstrating the brownfield advantage that we've been talking to our customers about. The site is fully permitted and the technical work is complete. So Energy Transfer will be operator on the project. And we're no stranger to cryogenic facilities. We own and operate 2 export terminals where we chill ethane to 148 degrees and then put them on vessels to export to Europe and Asia. So even though Lake Charles LNG is the first LNG project for Energy Transfer, this is totally within our wheelhouse to develop a project of that scale and of that nature. So when I left Mozambique to join Energy Transfer, I had my pick up the project to join. And I decided to join Lake Charles because I believe that it will be the next US Gulf Coast project to take FID. And we have some marketing success on the off-taker side, and we continue to have strong interest from potential equity partners.
And in terms of FID, Amy, how many large-scale LNG projects do you see taking FID over the next 2 years? Because it's Qatar's recent FID, Mozambique, Arctic 2, Golden Pass, then obviously other projects under construction as well as expansions in Australia. So how many do you think we could be looking at over the next 2 years?
Right. We had a lot of FID in 2019, and 2020 was kind of a dry year. I don't really focus on how many projects are going to take FID. I don't pay a lot of attention to demand forecasts. I think if my buyers are responsive, then I know there is demand out there. And if they're not, it doesn't really matter what the consultants forecast the demand to be. So I don't have a view of how many projects will take FID, but I do know that the market is very responsive to Lake Charles as a project. So we have line of sight to potentially take a 3-train FID. And if the market doesn't continue to cooperate, we'll take a FID on 2 trains.
So with record spot LNG prices in Asia over the new year, picking up on what you were saying, do you increasingly see buyers interested in talking about long-term SPA offtake?
Definitely. I think last year there was a lot of focus on shorter-term deals and some focus on brand-linked long-term, medium-term contracts. I think low spot prices are great for the buyers. There's just one problem. They're not sustainable. People often say that low gas price is the cure for a low gas price. I think the issue is whenever you have gas price that low, it's just not sustainable. And the savvy buyers know that. You see the spot prices going up, and this gives them the political coverage to go to their management and ask for authorizations for long-term procurement. That's what you're seeing now. The market is recovering, and we definitely see a lot of potential in long-term deals this year than we did last year.
Because as you said, there was only one FID last year in 2020. It was a bit of a dud year. Because developing trusted relationships with buyers must be integral to LNG marketing. How have you managed and adapted these partnerships during the pandemic?
Yeah, I think the in-person communication style is the best. You know, it's clearly a rich and enjoyable experience for all involved. Video and audio calls are just fine. I find it very useful in terms of moving the deals forward. the end of the day, all it takes is two willing parties to do a deal. It doesn't matter if it's in person or on WhatsApp or on any of the video or audio call mediums.
So you personally, you find working virtually, it's not been too much of a hindrance in the last year?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have counterparties that I have been on video call this whole time. Once I meet them in person, it's, we've known each other already. So I would say, yeah, I don't see the lack of in-person meetings is stopping us from doing deals.
And when it comes to selling LNG, especially in today's climate, it requires a truly customer-centric approach. How do you approach this process?
Yeah, we're pretty responsive to customers' requests, and we also help them prioritize their wants and needs as well. This is a buyer's market, so I think they have all the rights to ask for everything that they want to have. They want to have lower prices. They want to have the kind of pricing mechanism that will limit their pricing exposure. They want more flexibility. There are a lot of things they want, but at the end of the day, everything comes at a cost. So what we're trying to work with them is if, there's only so much flexibility that they need, and whatever they don't use, they're better off asking for the extra flexibility and get lower price instead. So in this uncertain market, we work with the buyers. We try to find risk sharing mechanisms where, we share both the upside and the downside. And if we just simply can't agree on certain terms, then we'll give it time and see if the market changes and there is a deal to be done on a later day.
Whilst you mentioned that you don't really pay too much attention to forecasts, the LNG market is widely forecasted to double in the next 15 to 20 years. Aside from key growth markets such as India and China, who do you see as potentially other leading players moving forward?
Right. Yeah. Emerging markets are everywhere. I think Asia represents most of that growth. You can literally throw a dart at the map and here's the emerging market for you. Like you said, India and China are represent a lot of the growth. However, a lot of the buyers over there prefer medium term to shorter term deals. And we see a lot of other places in Asia where these LNG is going to power development. And they don't mind signing long-term contracts because these contracts are backed by 20, 25-year PPAs. So lots of potential in Asia.
And with the heightened focus and sense of urgency around the energy transition, what do you see as the role of gas and LNG in this energy transition over the next decade or so?
Yeah, gas will no doubt play a key role in the energy transition, especially in developing countries. I think the solution for reliable energy sources that are cleaner than gas is not readily available at scale today. And developing countries have urgent need for energy today. So that's why I think gas is important in those countries. And even in developed country, they have a lot of grand plans to move to cleaner fuels or moving from dirty gas to clean gas, which is great. But gas is still important today. And we are working on providing solutions that are more environmentally friendly. So at Lake Charles, we're going to apply CCS to lower the carbon emissions of the site. And Energy Transfer as a company, we have a lot of company-wide initiatives in renewable and carbon capture as well.
Amy, what about energy security? Because in light of the recent snowstorms in Texas, I'm sure you're very familiar with those, which caused a power crisis for millions of homes. Do you think there is an important lesson to be learned in relation to energy security, and specifically regarding the role of gas and LNG as reliable sources of energy and bridging fuel?
Mm-hmm, definitely, yeah. I think planning for the energy future means planning for both baseload and spikes. As you mentioned, the recent storm kind of highlighted the weakness in the system. It's important to have natural gas as a reliable source of energy for both baseload and peaking. I think renewable is great, but it has a mind of its own. It doesn't care it's baseload or spikes, and you have natural gas that can be switched on and off fast. So it's a perfect backup power generation. as we incorporate more renewable into the energy mix.
Amy, switching gears slightly, because on this show we always like to delve a little bit more into your professional journey and also find out what personally drives and inspires you. Because since starting out with BP, you've worked for a major, an NOC, and various leading independent energy companies. How valuable has that diversity of experience and working environments been to you?
Sure. Yeah, I think variety is spice of life. I personally have enjoyed all the different organizations that I've worked for. BP, for example, that's where I started. And I think the training opportunities there were great. And the broad exposure to different parts of the business was tremendously helpful. I was in RasGas for 3 years. The experience there was fantastic. I work with people from all over the world, and I still keep in touch with a lot of people there. And from then on, I wanted to move more from learning to doing. A lot of the projects I've worked on since then have been challenging projects that are doable. I think it's important to have both. If you have a challenging project that is not doable, or a doable project that's not challenging, it's not fun to work on. So for me, I always look for projects where I can contribute and also is challenging and doable.
So having been part of the Mozambique LNG project from an early stage, and I presume the marketing team was small, it would be great to hear about the growth of that organisation and culture and really understand, in successfully delivering a project to FID, how important culture is within an organisation, but also the importance of an entrepreneurial spirit.
Sure. Yeah, I think it's a really good point. I think culture is critical to the success of a project and to an organization. I think one of the things that really prepared Anadarko well for the project is that it's a change-ready organization. People were eager to grow the business. It was an upstream company that was really good at discovering oil and gas, and somehow, Mozambique was something that they didn't plan for. But when you find that much gas, it's just important to give it a go and see where it goes. I think, having that 75 TCF of prolific reserve ends up to be the trump card that allow the project to succeed. But organization has put a lot of commitment into that project. And I kind of see a parallel with Lake Charles for energy transfer as well. Energy transfer is very much a change-ready organization. The ex-CEO basically grew the company from one single pipeline to what it is today. It's a $90 billion company. The organization is very much ready for any opportunities. And in terms of Lake Charles, I think it also has a trump card. It is the lowest priced, lowest cost project in the Gulf Coast. And I think that part of it is going to eventually give buyer the confidence that this is the next project to go. I think buyers will line up for Lake Charles like they did for Mozambique LNG. You talk about the importance of culture. I think it's just a lot of it comes from whether the organization is ready for changes, whether entrepreneurship is rewarded. And I think you see that with both Anadarko and energy transfer.
Amy, at the core of what you do is building relationships and doing deals. What's been the most memorable deal that you've done in your career?
That's a hard question. Clearly, all the deals that I've done are near and dear to my heart. I think long-term SPAs takes a lot of circumstance lining up together, and I feel very fortunate to be working on all of them. I think if I were to pick one, I worked with CNOOC for the longest time. It was 6 years of a roller coaster ride. Clearly, the market changed quite a bit during those years, and there were times where we weren't even talking. And you try to revive the deal, over time, and it's very much he loves me not kind of situation for years. I specifically remember it was winter of 2017. The industry had gone through a decade of falling prices on Brent indexation, and CNOOC was making a lot of demands we just couldn't entertain. I was honestly feeling very hopeless about the deal. And I vividly remember there was a day I was in a meeting room in Lisbon, negotiating a European SPA. And it was nearly done. We had a few points to argue over, and the counterparty was amicable, but they weren't easy to persuade. I was ready to spend the whole day there just to close out whatever issues we had. And I remember they agreed on everything and left in an hour. And I checked the email afterwards. CNOOC had given a second proposal that month because the first one didn't stick. And it's typically not like CNOOC to come back twice in a month. So I turned to my teammate and I go, wow, the market is turning. And the year after that, it was surreal. We wrapped up all the SPAs needed for FID that year. And we spent years working on these agreements. Finally, it's all coming together. And it was all coming together so fast. It was quite surreal. The SPA negotiation process with CNOOC was loads of fun, as SPA negotiations typically are. It's the honeymoon period after a commitment is made. So I would say, looking back on that 6-year journey, it's very memorable to me, all the ups and downs and the fact that it ended up on a good note. I still keep in touch with the people there. You really build a deep relationship after seeing each other through the thick and thin for so many years.
You mentioned earlier transitioning your career from learning to doing. It may be fair to say that you go from learning to doing to leading. What would you say are some of the most valuable tips and advice you have got in terms of developing your own leadership style? And is there any specific advice you may have received from a mentor that sticks out?
Sure. Yeah, I think leadership is within everyone's reach, and you don't need to read a book about it. We had a beloved general manager on the Mozambique project. He was a great boss. He was firm but fair. He cared about people. He jokes around quite a bit, but he always put you on the spot if you're not measuring up to his expectation. So somebody like that, they can lift the team spirit when it's down, and they model what they want to see in other people through their daily actions. And I think that's what leadership is about. It's about putting the greater good ahead of your own interest and model that on a daily basis. So I would say over time, I have learned from watching other people doing it, how to be a good leader. And I try to do the right thing. And I think, leadership does come down to making the right choices on a daily basis.
Amy, the power of diversity and the advantages associated with developing an inclusive and diverse organisation are a key focus for many companies today. What does diversity mean to you?
I think today's society emphasizes a lot on diversity from a skin color perspective. But I think at the end of the day, diversity matters from a perspective of experiences and personalities. I think as long as you have an organization that has an inclusive environment where people with diverse experiences and personalities are given the opportunity to share their views and debate on important issues, then that is a diverse organization.
And away from working, I guess, in your career, and away from the office, how has your approach to managing both your personal and professional lives evolved over time, and that key phrase, time management?
Mm-hmm. Time management is a difficult one. In long-term marketing, you spend so many years on a project and you get very vested in it. So it's easy to get carried away and put a lot of personal issues on the side. What I learned from the Mozambique LNG is the fact that you can spend 6 years on the project and the project will happen on the market timing. In the meantime, you need to pay attention to your family, to your friends, and because they're the important support system that's going to be there, this year, next year, and for the rest of your life. I think balance is key. So on this Lake Charles project, it's a challenging job, but I also try to make sure that I make time for family, friends, exercise a few times a week, just have a balanced life.
Amy, you appear highly reflective. How important would you say that's been for you over your career to date?
I would say I'm a pretty reflective person just by nature. I like to ponder the causes and effects of things. I like to observe human behavior and appreciate how different we all are. I suppose, being self-reflective is helpful. It's the longer-term thinking that helps you prepare for the challenges in life.
You've had the opportunity to visit many countries, probably have some incredible experiences all over the world through your career to date. Is there a particular moment or experience that stands out for you as one that you'll never forget?
Sure. There's so many good memories. A lot of the places we go to, that's where the markets are. Amazing cities I've been to. I often enjoy going for a run in the morning when I'm there. Hong Kong, Singapore, those are the places that are great for a morning run. 5 o'clock, you stroll the street and watch the city wake up. I remember I was in Milan, same thing. I was going for a run in the morning and you smell the coffee, and it's very impressive to see Italian parallel parking. I mean, it's all very small cars, very organized. Mozambique is special. I remember going to Maputo a month after I joined the project, and you see the part of Africa that's not touristy, and I really enjoyed the people there. They're so kind and so gentle. We met with government officials. We met with people in the national oil company, and they're just genuinely good people. And I think, whenever you travel, clearly you enjoy the food, the sights, very little you can see, but also the people. I think they really make these experiences special.
I believe we all want to make an impact, both personally and professionally. When it's time for you to look back on your career, what is the impact that you would like to have made?
I want to be remembered for the projects that I helped develop. These LNG projects cost billions of dollars and require a lot of stakeholder commitment. I think it's a miracle that so many companies can get together and work on a common goal of developing a project. I think it's. I certainly remember the good times we have successfully developing these projects.
Well, look, Amy, thank you so much for joining us. We'll leave it there. And good luck on the latest project with Lake Charles LNG. I hope that all goes very well for you over the next few years. But that is all we've got time for here on Women in LNG. Until next time, it's goodbye from us.
Women in LNG, in association with Powerplay, presented by ExxonMobil.